Sorry, everybody. This is Tony Fitzwater from Fitzwater Paranormal Investigations. This is my third PowerPoint presentation on the tools of the paranormal trade. Today we'll be discussing thermal camera. Just give me 1 second. My paranormal tools of the trade, the thermal camera. The history of thermal cameras in the late 1950s and 1960s, Texas Instruments, Hughes Aircraft, Honeywell developed a single elemental detectors that scanned scenes and produced line images. The military had a lock on the technology because it was expensive and sensitive, and had sensitive military applications. These basic detectors led to the development of the modern thermal imaging. The pyroelectric Verticon tube was developed by Philips, and EEAV in the 1970s became the core of the new product for firefighting, first used by the Royal Navy for shipboard firefighting. In 1978, Raytheon R&D Group, then part of Texas Instrument, patented ferroelectric infrared detectors using barium, strontium, titanium, BST. BST stands for barium, strontium, titanium. This material that coats the thermal image sensor. Raytheon first distributed the technology to the military in 1979. In the late 1980s, the federal government awarded HIADV, High Density Demonstrated Array Development, contracts to both Raytheon and Honeywell for development of thermal imaging technology for the practical military application. Raytheon went to customize BST technology, while Honeywell developed vanadium oxide microbiologic technology. Later, federal programs such as Locust USP, low-cost, uncooled sensor program, provided funding for both companies to develop their thermal technology and to equipment systems, including rifle sights, rifle sights and drive reviewers. After 1991, Gulf War production volume increased and cost decreased. So, introduction of thermal ranging imaging in the fire service ensued. In the late 2004, Raytheon Commercial Infrared Division was sold to L-3 Communications. Meanwhile, the Honeywell microbiolometer patent was awarded in 1994. Boeing, Lockheed Martin, who sold its infrared business to the British Aerospace, or BAE, and other licensed Vox technology from Honeywell, developed the infrared detectors for military applications. Thermal imagers are based both BST and microbiologic meter technologies are available now for non-military application. In fact, the thermal imaging that has now expanded for being used in firefighting, law enforcement, industrial applications, security, transportation, and many other industries. Ballard introduced its first internal imager specially designed for firefighting in 1998. That's the brief history of thermal cameras. How the thermal camera works. Infrared is just one part of the electromagnetic spectrum, which encompasses radiation from X-rays, gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet, and the three regions of visible light, infrared, terahertz waves, microwaves, and radio waves. They are all related and differential the length of their wavelength. All objects emit a certain amount of black body radiation as a function of their temperatures. Generally speaking, the higher an object temperature, the more infrared radiation is emitted by the black body radiation. A special camera can detect the radiation in a way that is similar to an ordinary camera detects visible light. It works even in total dark because ambient light does not matter. It makes its usefulness for rescue operations, smoke-filled buildings, and underground. But what we're really looking for is things much colder than the environment, and I will explain more. Examples of thermal gear. This right here is an example of my first thermal shot right here, Rex. I'll bring the camera right here. This right here was my first thermal shot. This was a Spirit called Rex. Here is another captured spirit which is lying low here in the hallway, while a regular human is standing against here. This is not me, by the way. Okay, this is a spirit hiding behind a threshold behind a chair. A regular human is standing here. Actually, that's me in a mirror, and the mirror is reflecting this person behind me. This is another image that I took of a person standing in a hallway. As you can tell, the hallway is cold, and he's slightly warmer than the rest of the hall. Basically, I have a FLIR IR i7. My FLIR basically, it's not top of the line, but pretty close. Here's an example of the FLIR box that I wear, which I carry on day 1 and day 2 investigations, as well as the device itself, right here. And that's it for the display. So give me 1 second, and I'll show you the thermal gear. Alright. Sorry about this. Alright. Like I said, I have a thermal gear, a camera, that I've had for about 2 years now. It's a perfect example of thermal technology. One of the most important things about my hobby is that you got to have equipment that you can carry in one hand. Or two. Most of the time I'm carrying the digital recorder on my arm right here with the holder. And it's going into an earpiece in my ear so I can hear it in real time. I'm also wearing a point of view camera, which I'll probably be doing next week. So I guess I'll do the point of view camera next week. But one of the most impressive pieces of equipment I have is my thermal camera. Now, the thermal camera cost about $2,000. Actually, much more than $2,000. When I bought it, it was very expensive. Here's my thermal camera. It's pointing at me, that's why it's really hot. Now, when you're using the thermal camera, you point this part here. Now, as I said, there's a lens cap right here. So if I turn it on, and I turn it back to me, you'll see how hot I am. See what I mean? And behind me, you'll see cold. And we know who's behind me. Anyway, so the thermal camera, you point it direction toward your query or down the hallway. Now, when I usually use the thermal camera, it's nice and slow, because if you go too fast, it kind of acts weird. So when you're taking thermal shots, you want to do nice and slow, like everything you do in paranormal investigation. It's not about speed, it's about thorough. Okay, so you point it down the hall, and right here is the trigger. Sorry, right here is the trigger. And so when you find the item, you slowly press the trigger. As I said, slowly. Don't go fast, don't jerk it. Because if you move, as the camera is very sensitive, and you always do it nice and slow and hold it down. Main reason for this is the camera doesn't jerk. And that way you can get a false positive, like you might be pointing to something that's really cold, like a refrigerator. You don't want to do that. Instead, you want to point down slowly, down where you're going to pick it up. Now, my camera has a lens cap, which is a lever right here. Let me bring it. See it right there? Now, when you open it up, then you can see the full spectrum. That's me, hot. Okay, so you put it down the thing, and you press the button. Now, the thermal camera, like I said, is an IR7. Oh, it's an i7. It keeps the temperature, what you're pointing at, as well as surrounding, and it makes, on the bottom, it makes it between the coldest to the hottest, depending on where you're at. And then when you point at it, you're going to look for something that is abnormal, like a figure, or somebody hiding their head, or ducking behind equipment. Most of the time, they know that I'm pointing the camera at them, so they're ducking. Intelligent spirits are pretty smart. They realize that I'm tracking them, and that my equipment, though non-hostile to them, can pick them up. Most intelligent spirits are well aware of what I'm doing, and so they will duck behind stuff just so they not get caught by the camera. Notice the thing behind me. Anyway. So, basically, this device here allows me to bring it up and closer, magnification. It also allows me to view all the snapshots that I have in a row. It allows me to change the time, date, and the temperature between Celsius and Fahrenheit. I like Fahrenheit personally. The regular American, I don't like Celsius. It can also auto lock and load, so that way, no matter what, it's pointing at the thing. I don't like using that feature. I prefer, like I said, this is a pretty light piece of equipment. And when you're using it, it's one-handed. Now, I have a piece that attaches the camera right here. Sorry. Right here, where a strap can go here, so that if it falls, it won't fall on the ground and break. This is like $2,000. Okay? It's expensive. Every piece of equipment that I own is expensive. And this is the most important piece of equipment that I have because of its cost. It cost me over $2,000 to purchase, so it's not cheap. All the equipment that I've owned, I've acquired from my main job. So, like I said, I don't charge for my hobby. Unless I have to go to some other area that I'm outside of my calling area. And if I have to, in that case, like if I have to go to New York or whatever, or overseas, the client will be paying for transportation and housing and food, because that's beyond my scope. My normal scope is local places. Anyway, so the thermal camera shows exactly what I'm looking at. I have examples of that on my website, and thermal also on YouTube. Perfect examples of each shot that I have taken with this device. Now, before, when I took Rex's picture, I was using a very old thermal shot that used two hands, like this, and it's very hard to control. Now, I don't have the device, okay? I borrowed it, and when I had my first couple of successes with the device, then I bought my baby. He doesn't look like much, but he works in complete darkness. Like I said earlier, I can look upon the screen in complete dark and then find what I'm looking for. Now, however, it doesn't show you the grays that you would expect. It doesn't allow you to move in the room properly because it's just showing you temperature. So if the room is completely cold or natural, you won't see anything. It'll be kind of grayish black. But, you know, you're not expected to be using this device to run around the room. That's what flashlights are used for, or my night vision. I mean, my natural night vision. So, the device here is controlled by this button here, which turns it on and off. And then close it with the thing. And that's my thermal camera. Like I said, it's a FLIR IR lens 1-6.8 millimeters. And it's an i7 thermal camera. It was $2,000. Plus shipping and handling. So yeah, it was expensive. But the camera itself is pretty spot on. If I'm in a proper environment, I can find what I'm looking for. Even if something is behind a wall, I can still see it. Or if it's hiding behind drapes. I have examples of that. They don't go away. And most of the time, they'll even help me see things that I can't see. Or they'll point. Like I have one spirit who said, look through your thermal camera, and it was showing me somebody pressed against the window. It's on one of my YouTube pages, on my YouTube page. So, the thermal camera, it's spot on. It's expensive, but it's wonderful for my hobby, which is all that matters. Sometimes you have to pay in order to have the best equipment, and the thermal camera is my best piece of equipment other than my millimeter. Next week, I'll probably be doing the point of view camera and or the spirit boxes. Now I have two spirit boxes, so I haven't decided which one yet. So if you see this video, why don't you tell me which one you want to see? I also have other things I can show, but I guess I can do the point of view camera and or the ghost box. Let me know which one you would like to see. And have a pleasant and safe day. Bye.